Welcome back to the GolfRules Questions Podcast. This is episode 132, where Stuart and Blakey discuss where they have been in the world, including Cobram-Barooga, New Delhi, Barwon Heads, Riyadh, St Andrews and Adelaide, with a little bit of rules thrown in. So whether you are hiding in the garage or speeding down the motorway on a push bike, please enjoy this episode of the GolfRules Questions Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the GolfRules Questions Podcast, episode 132. We haven't done one for over a month, and I've forgotten everything, and my house looks like a bomb site. But welcome, I'm Blakey, and this is the professional outfit that we put on here. This is Stuart, also known as Podcast McPhee, as my co-host, and basically the person that really pushes me to do these podcasts. It's definitely not that I don't want to do them, but just finding the time as a new dad, but in between the travel and stuff like that, I actually really do like this podcast, and I really like talking rules. But just finding the time, it is a stretch. I'm sure, there's many dads out there, say that 3 times, have been through the same situation and probably doing a lot better than me. But I'm only new to this new thing that's happening with my life. So, it is a bit of a stretch. But enjoying all of it. And the travel still, the baby, maybe, he's not too bad. But it is a lot of work. So to everyone who is a parent, unbelievable. You guys deserve a medal. Stuart, how are you?
Blakey, it is great to be here on episode 1 of The Art of Fatherhood. I'm pleased to be here.
I definitely won't be starting a podcast on how to be a successful parent. But he hasn't died yet, so I'm going well so far.
Jeez.
My partner is fantastic, and she is making sure to keep him alive, whereas, Anyway.
Are your attempts to do the opposite or something?
Now, we've had a fair bit of travel. We've had a fair few tournaments happening since we last got on the air, so we're just going to have a little run through of those, and if that doesn't have enough information, we'll chuck in some Clubland stories. They're all ready to go. We've actually got 8 Clubland stories to get through. So if I don't do them this episode, they'll definitely be in the next one. Where have you been, podcast?
Well, I also have done tournaments, but just not as in exotic locations as you. I went to an event. I went to an event which was not a tournament, but was golf related, which was a long way away. But yeah, the 2 events required some travel, just not as exotic as your locations.
Yes, but what was the one you did before the Vic Open?
Cobram-Barooga.
Oh, that's right. And you didn't have any before that, did you?
Not this year, no.
So how was Cobram-Barooga?
Again, and I remember making this comment 12 months ago, and I remember a very keen listener of ours picking up on what I said and sending it through to the superintendent at that course. The course looked amazing, incredible. Given, as we know, through Australian summers, it can be very, very hot in places and grass doesn't like it. And to have a course looking as green and the fairways in as excellent condition as they were, and the fairways and the greens, they've put in a lot of effort to use a lot of water. The course was fantastic, and it was very hot. I'll have to do the math, but it was 41 degrees on Saturday and Sunday, so I assume that's 100 and something, 5 or 6 in the old scale. Very, very hot on the weekend, which caused its own issues, but that was the event before the windy Victorian Open.
The Cobram-Barooga, being in Barooga.
It is over the border in Barooga, yep.
They do have the Murray River that they take some water out of, don't they?
It looked like they'd taken a fair bit out of that Murray River too, yep. From what I've seen.
Yeah, well,
The mighty
it
Murray.
has been, we're going off topic from golf rules, so I'm sure 50% of the listeners have signed out. But if they've come back, because they probably thought this thing was dead anyway. But
Don't encourage them.
Yeah, I mean, it has been very hot in Melbourne. It's we've had a fair few over 40-degree days, which we've had in the past, definitely. But to have this many has really, just kept the heat around. Yeah, hanging around with the Americans, they talk in Fahrenheit a lot, which doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, if you have a how do you describe it? On the periodic table, right? And well, it's 2 parts hydrogen, one part oxygen, right? And at 0 degrees Celsius, it turns from a solid into a liquid, and then from 100 degrees, it turns from a liquid into a gas. I mean, that is perfect on how to measure temperature.
That's why the majority of the world measure in Celsius. 98% of the countries.
If I said to you 32 and 212, what does that mean?
Well, I know 32 Fahrenheit 0. I assume 212 is 100, is it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, it's so confusing. But the quickest way to, I think that we're talking about this, the quickest way to do that calculation is
and 32 and 5 and a 9 and.
Well, that's the actual calculation, but the quickest way is to double and add 30. So if you went 40, 40, and 30, you're nearly at 110.
Wow.
But that's a quick way and not quite as accurate as
the 5 and the 9 and the 32.
So
I just did the quick math. I just did the 41 degrees. I was a bit over. It was 105.8 Fahrenheit. So let's call that 106.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was hot that particular weekend. And then some genius said, let's wear all black on Sunday, which went down well.
Some real smart cooks. Actually, though, it's funny because if you wear black, apparently you sweat more, and then the sweat gets absorbed back into your body and apparently cools you down more.
Okay.
Anyway, well, that's why, those skins, the things that are compression things, you're supposed to wear the black ones when it's hot and then the white ones when it's cold.
I have a feeling now only the two of us are listening to this podcast.
Yeah, probably. But anyway, did you have any rulings in Cobram-Barooga?
I got plenty, but don't you have a GRQ OTW from 3 months ago to answer?
Yeah, that's right. So the GRQ OTW, I just had it in front of me too.
It's pretty straightforward.
In Foursome, so this is 131. In Foursome stroke play with side A and B, let's call them Jeff and Andrew, or Andrew for A and Jeff for B. Andrew, whose turn it is to play, plays a ball from outside the teeing area. Then Jeff makes the next stroke from within the teeing area. What is the penalty and which player makes the next stroke? The answer is Stuart.
Oh, is that my cue?
Yeah.
Did you give them names then? I thought it was A and B.
Yeah, let's just go with A is Andrew and B is Jeff.
Beth. So Andrew's turn to start play the hole from inside the teeing area. They've failed to do that, so that definitely incurs a general penalty. Which is, we know they're playing stroke play, so that's 2 strokes added to their whole score in an attempt, and they must correct that. It's one of our 5 must corrects in stroke play. You must correct starting play the hole from outside the teeing area. In an attempt to correct that mistake, they've also breached 22.3 playing out of order in foursomes, and I reckon they're going to incur a second general penalty for doing that.
You reckon, or they are?
No, I almost certain they will. Yep.
So Andrew's now teeing off with his 5th shot.
Andrew is still required to start play the hole from inside the teeing area and it'll be their 5th stroke.
Well, I've learnt something tonight, that there's 5 situations where you must correct. I didn't know that.
In stroke play, you knew that, didn't you?
Well, no, I didn't know that there were 5.
Well, I'm a lists guy, so I know that list, and I reckon if I said to you, "Hey, name all 5," you get them. I know you would know them all. But I'm not doing that, Blakey. I'm not doing that.
No, we're doing it. So, I mean, it's a rules podcast. That's what the people actually come to listen to.
So we know there's 5 must corrects.
Okay,
And
so
what I mean by must correct, sorry if I may, what that means by must correct is if you don't do it and you fail, you tee off on the next hole, or you return your scorecard when it's at the 18th, you are disqualified. Therefore, it is a must fix.
Okay, so you've given teeing area to everyone.
Teeing area is one, starting play of the hole outside the tee.
Could we say order of play in foursomes or in foursomes?
2.
Okay. If we weren't talking about foursomes, I would. If we weren't talking about foursomes, I would have forgotten that one.
Yeah, 2 of them there.
The two easy ones are wrong ball.
Definitely.
And serious breach, wrong place.
Yeah, and the last one's really easy.
That's the one I can't remember.
Well, you've got a 3-foot putt and we're playing stroke play, and I say, don't worry, just pick it up, and you walk to the next hole.
Failure to hole out, 6.5.
3.3. 6.3.3. 6.5, I think, yeah. Or 3.3.
Well, I guess it's both. Well, yeah, it's definitely 6.5, but
6 and a 3.3.
But it probably goes under 3.3 as well.
The last bit, yeah.
But I don't know. You say that's easy. I probably wouldn't have got that because I'm not thinking that I have to correct that. I'm just thinking I have to hole out. Anyway,
which you do.
Well, yeah, it's just that's a good one. Thank you.
So this question has, I think, 2 must corrects of the 5 in stroke play.
Yeah, absolutely. It does.
Now, you said there was some disagreement or something with the answer. What is your answer?
My answer's force penalty strokes, but someone out there wanted to just penalise them too.
And I know why.
Because they needed to correct that mistake.
And they reckon the world stops and nothing else happens, nothing else matters after.
But does it, I mean, you corrected me on that for that real long MGA question the other day. But does this actually, for this one, does it actually say the world stops? 6.6.
No, I think when people see the words must correct, they think, oh, well, anything that happens after that doesn't matter because you got to correct the mistake.
Which is fine if you want to do if they want it to be like that, they just have to make it consistent, right?
And I've always said, well, the world doesn't exactly stop because if you ask for advice, you're still going to cop a penalty for that, even though you haven't corrected the mistake. Well, if you've got 15 clubs in your bag, you're going to cop a penalty for that, regardless if you've corrected the mistake or not.
Well, there you go. That's you've just proven that it's not quite accurate to say.
I think the world is stop is a little bit too extreme.
Yeah, I can see how you.
If you go and punch a player, they're going to go, oh, it's okay because you hadn't corrected that mistake yet, so you're good.
Yep. Right, so now we're getting into. Let's get back to Cobram-Barooga. Did you have any rulings in Cobram-Barooga?
Interesting conversation that you may be interested to know on the radio. Someone, not one of our referee crew, but someone came on, maybe a starter or someone came on and said, oh, do we have a heat policy? It was pretty hot. And someone answered quite rightfully, it's an outdoor sport. The heat policy is if the player doesn't want to play, they can leave their group, return to scorecard return, hand their scorecard in and withdraw from the tournament. That's the heat policy, pretty much.
Basically, we're in our contract, we need to get this tournament finished, so if the player doesn't want to play, everyone else who wants to win money will. I
know in extreme cases we may have, look, let's limit the number of volunteers, let's have additional water runs, let's not do as many scorers, just to protect those people volunteering their time. But when it comes to the actual players themselves in the competition, playing for money, that's the heat policy. Excuse me.
So Vic Open, I wasn't there, but Vic Open about 13 or 14 years ago, I think it was 2011. It was held at 2 courses, or it was held. Maybe this was just before they got the women involved, but It was held at Spring Valley anyway, and it was the wet bulb said 43, and so they restricted the people out in the course, and they even restricted, I think they might have even restricted caddies, and they said just players or something like that. Yeah, like they didn't want too many people walking on the course, because obviously the grass gets burnt as well if you walk on it while it's in extreme temperatures. And so they didn't have scorers. The players just did it all themselves. There was basically no one out there but the players, and maybe there was people running water or something like that to keep the players cold, but or cool, or hydrated. But then they were talking about how possums were falling out of trees. Now, whether that's a stretch or not, I don't know. But they mentioned that, and when it's that hot, I guess you wouldn't be surprised. Heat policy. I mean, fire policy maybe, but heat policy, just you get paid to play. Get on with it. I mean, those,
like a lot of things, it's the same for everyone.
Those tennis players at the Australian Open, what are they playing? The court temperature is like 50, 53 degrees.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're running around. It's not like golfers run.
No, they don't.
Anyway,
some of them do the opposite of running.
Anything else? Cobram-Barooga?
Just trying to think now of my holes that I was on, and there was a playoff for the event, and a woman had a putt on 18 to make the playoff and missed. Then we had a few hole playoff, which in very hot conditions, and of course the broadcast have to extend their coverage. Just trying to think of any rulings. It wasn't anything untoward. We had to do a little bit of control where, I'm not sure why we haven't picked up on this previously, and this is my third year in a row doing this event, where you're teeing off on 15, you just pull it slightly left, and I mean 15, 20 metres left, you'll end up on 13 green.
Okay.
And so just from a safety perspective, we had a bit more active control and marshalling of, look, hold on 15 tee, let's wait till pin goes in on 13, and then we'll give the all clear for 15 to tee off. That impacted timings a little bit, but not too much. Just trying to think of rulings. I denied a woman relief from an ant, called me over for ants crawling all over the place. And I probably gave her, I just said, are you allergic? And she said, no. I said, well, play the balls, there's no relief. Sure, there were ants everywhere, but they're really tiny too. They're really small. And I think they pose an issue to really tiny, small. Certainly not 1 inch long, that's for sure. And I think she might say when someone asks her next time you're allergic, she'll come out with a yes. But she said no, and I said, well, I can't give you a free relief. It's play it, or we can take you some unplayable options. But I'm just trying to think of...
If they were red ants, would that change your mind?
A little bit, I think. If there's something where there's danger to a player, yes.
Do the shoe test that I made up.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if you plant your shoe down and they run away...
Is your foot in it when you do this test?
Yes.
Okay.
If you plant your shoe down and they run away, then they won't attack you. But if you plant your foot down and they start crawling all over you, then, it might be a case of these ones are hunting for you.
Maybe they do the Happy Gilmore approach to taking a stroke. You're making a stroke, just run in, hit it, and walk off, run off.
You could. I mean, you could. What would you do? Would you offer that to someone? Hey, I'm not going to give you relief. Why don't you do a Happy Gilmore at the?
We try to not give advice to players in our position,
right.
Obviously.
That's right. Well, that's good. In the same time that you were in Cobram-Barooga, I was in Delhi in India. I tried to keep a lookout or be very careful around all the water that I was consuming. And I was very lucky for the week not to get the dreaded Delhi belly.
Incredibly lucky.
I think most of the water I was drinking was out of a bottle. But then it said on the bottle that it was bottled only about 45 k's away. So I was like, oh, well, where's that water coming from?
Exactly.
But, I'd get the toothbrush when I was brushing my teeth and I'd just wash it with the water bottle and stuff like that. So, and then you don't eat salad because that's been washed in water. And someone said, just eat Indian food because they've overcooked it, so it should be fine.
Well, over there they just call it food.
Well, to me, just eat the curry that's on offer. Eat the Rogan Josh, whatever. Don't eat the salad. Don't eat the vegetables. I was like, okay. That was one of the most difficult tournaments I've ever had to referee at. Thankfully, we only had 108 players, and even that was still probably too many. But it didn't help that every day we had at least an hour to 2.5 hours of fog. Fog is like one of the worst things because it's like a perfect day, and the only reason that we can't play is because the stuff is stopping us from watching where our ball
Visibility,
goes.
yeah.
And, safety aspect, losing golf balls, pace of play, all that stuff. Yep, absolutely, totally understand. But, it's a perfect day. It's not windy. We wish it was windy. It's not raining. The sun is just waiting to bake you. So we teed off our round one, didn't get round two finished till halfway after lunch on Saturday, round two, right? And we had a plan in place to play shotgun. So they were quickly doing the draw as best they could with a shotgun. Ferried all the players out there in carts, as many as we could get out there. And then they started playing at 3:30 on the Saturday. Sunset was 6. So they got about 10 holes in, maybe 9. And then they came back the next day. On the Sunday, we still had 8 holes to play. And another fog delay. And then we got them off. There was one person at every hole, and they had the scorecards. They had the hole locations. They had the stats card, and they were just. It was basically like, Stuart, where's your card? Here, and here's your new card. And you're like, some of the groups that were slow. I was walking down the fairway with them, going 4, 6, 9, 8, 1, 2, 2, 7, 1, 9, 4. Of course, no one had a 1 and a 9, but you get
Not
the
two of them anyway.
You get the drift. So I was just calling out their score as they walked from the fairway to the green. We changed it so that our scoring area was whilst I was in the vicinity.
Yeah.
And we've adopted that model local rule for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is, after the players handed in the scorecard. But, we definitely didn't want to have any of those stuff-ups. That would be the worst because then, the player, oh, you've done this and this and this, just absolutely have a go. And he's missed out on money just because of a scoring area because we rushed him. But at the same time, no one wanted to come back on the Monday.
No.
I know it's a $2 million event, but no one wanted to come back. They all just want to get out of there.
Yeah.
Liv was the next week, so there were a lot of Liv players who were like, well, I'm not coming back. I'm just going to pull out. One did. But, yeah, it was crazy. Now, the course was 7,000 metres long, so it was huge. Then all the walking in between was at least another 1.5 Ks, so it's 8,500.
Was it time part 5 hours or something?
Well, yeah, I mean, our pace of play was 4 hours 50, and here we are trying to bag the PGA Tour for taking 6 hours, but, it was you could just see that this was going to be easily 6 hours. Then you got the fog delay. Then you got 10.5 hours maximum without the fog delay. So now you got 8.5 hours for 108 players. It was just one of the hardest things I've ever worked. There was out of bounds, there was penalty areas, it was tight, it was narrow, the greens were running at 13, the greens were slopey, so, and, the sponsor wanted to put their whole locations on the hardest, they wanted to put it on hills, like 3.0 gradient.
So who wanted the greens running at 13? Was that someone's desire, or it just worked out that way? So
our sponsor owns the course, owns the little business area, owns the gated community. There's a couple of apartment blocks right overlooking the course, and this is in the middle of Delhi, basically, or middle of New Delhi. And I think the penthouse went for 25 million. I mean, I could think of better places to go and live.
That's right.
I'd rather spend 250,000 and go and live in Tasmania. And that's not a blight on Tasmania. That's what I'm saying.
A little bit.
It's a gorgeous place. Why would you spend 25 million on a penthouse looking over, smog? Anyway, so it was just an absolute nuts. And we had this rule that we try to make penalty areas basically on left and right of every fairway. If it wasn't out of bounds, it was a penalty area. There was only a couple of holes where it wasn't a penalty area. And then inside the penalty areas were irrigation, concrete drains that you would normally think of as penalty areas anyway, but they had normally in the general area. Anyway, so our tournament director made them under model local rule F24 that you got free relief from the immovable obstruction inside the penalty area. And, I can definitely understand the rationale for it, but it was just so hard to understand, to switch your mind. You're in a penalty area. Of course you don't. Oh, no, you do get free relief. You do get free relief this week. Just this week. And then it's like, no, but you have to keep it in the penalty area.
Free drop inside.
So some of them were playing it off the line and stuff like that, which is so weird. So, that was probably the craziest rule. That's pretty much what happened in India. But we got finished, and we got our winning group finished at 6 o'clock, and we got our last group finished at 6:02. They were on the 17th hole. They were just a little bit slow, a lot slow. But, we got them finished, and it was a great drink that night, and we were just happy to get out of there. One of the craziest things is if you catch the bus from the hotel to the golf course at 5:30 in the morning, it's a 25-minute, 30-minute ride.
I know where you're going with this.
When you catch it at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, it's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Traffic.
Ridiculous.
I couldn't understand how you could drive in that. There's no road rules. There were people driving the wrong side of the road. It was a 4-lane highway, and there were 6 cars across, maybe even 7 at sometimes. It was if you're going to put us in India again, I need the hotel to be across the road. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Unfortunately, it's like a lot of countries in that part of the world, north of us in Asia, having spent time in places like, Ho Chi Minh City and the traffic there in Bangkok, and the traffic just ridiculous, beyond ridiculous. It takes you, as you say, an hour and a half to go 8 kilometres, 5 miles. Just ridiculous.
I was driving today in Melbourne, and it was just so nice to actually, trust the people next to me that they would drive the speed limit and they would drive in the left-hand lane.
Stick in their lane.
They would indicate when they are merging. And, the horns. They overuse horns like they're going out of fashion. And so because they overuse them so much, they just become part of the noise. and no one even cares about them anymore.
They have no impact.
They have no impact. Someone uses a horn where we're driving in Melbourne. This is not the driving questions podcast, but if someone uses a horn in Melbourne, it has an impact. Like, you're they must be frustrated. They must be waking someone up. They must be, someone's crept into the other lane. Oh, the horn there, it's every second car uses a horn, and you're like, well, why? Because you can't go anywhere, so why you keep beating in the horn?
I've got a ruling for you, just to digress a little bit, from Cobram-Barooga.
Oh, you want to get back to rules, do you?
Oh, it's okay. You know what? You're the director. You call it.
Yeah,
whatever you'd like to do. I was just trying. Got called on the 4th. He says, I think my ball's embedded. And it was in the rough and pretty thick grass. You'd know the type of grass. I don't, but pretty thick grass. I said, let's just check. If you can mark it, and we'll lift it up and have a look. And sure enough, half the ball was in. You could tell the shape of the grass. The ball was in, embedded in that grass. Unfortunately, it hadn't broke the surface of the earth, hadn't broken the ground. I said, well, everything under the ball was still grass. I said, well, unfortunately, it's not embedded. And he says, well, look, it's made a perfect mark of where the ball is inside. I said, yeah, but it hasn't broken the surface of the ground. I then said to him, it actually looks like someone has stood on it. That's the shape, like it'll be really stomped down into the ground. It looks like someone stood on it. But unfortunately, unless it's known or virtually certain that it has been moved by a person, and we didn't see anyone, and you haven't seen anyone, then there's nothing much we can do about it. Anyway, just thought I'd get us off Indian traffic and get us onto some rules with that one.
I thought you were about to say someone jumped out of the spectator jumped out and said, yeah, it was me, I stood on it. So you provided relief, and then later on you found out that was the dad.
It was the caddy. No.
I've had that one with ALJ before. A player hit it down, I think it was a second at Huntingdale. Player hits it down, and it hits another ball, right? So it hits another ball, and so we need to replace that ball that was at rest. And I get over there and I don't know what's happened, so they're explaining it to me, and then a spectator pops in and goes, I'm like, well, we just need to replace it to where it was moved from. And no one sort of knows because it was over a little bit of a crest, and then the spectator says, oh, it was right there, and a really, well, I wouldn't say really nice spot. It was on the fairway anyway. It was regardless if it was on the fairway. But it was in a nice sort of spot, and there was kind of a tree root nearby, so I guess it could have been in a crappier spot. But it was a nice spot. And then they played on, and I didn't think anything about it. And then ALJ was watching me, and he comes over and he goes, now, does it make a difference that is the player's dad?
Oh.
And I was like, well, it shouldn't. I'm just going to trust them as they, trust their word. And he's like, well, good answer, but, it is an interesting scenario.
Was it his dad?
Yeah, it was.
Well, I think we've had this conversation.
There was only one spectator. Who was it going to be?
In fact, we were reviewing that Daniel Berger Into the Water Players' Championship 16th hole when Victor Hovland and Damon, I think it was, came over and said, you didn't cross there. So you had this 2-on-1.
Yep.
And we're talking about weight of evidence, and we're talking about
this was at your trip last week.
Yeah, and we're talking about how much you value what people say. So in that particular case, if you had 5 people and one of them was the player's father, would you value that person's view as much as, say, 4 other independent or 3 other independent observers? Just interesting. I agree with you. You'd like to take what people say to you as at face value, but, there can be some self-interest there or some bias there. But
lots of bias.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just take them. I'd say let's just take them by their word until they make a judgment that's not reasonable, and then you almost lose that 95%. At least 95% that they've said the right thing. That what they've said is the facts. Then you start going, well, you got it wrong last time by quite a considerable margin. So, am I going to believe you because you stuffed it up last time? I'd see that. Is that sort of where they went headed, or it wasn't real? It was an open-ended question that didn't get answered.
Well, the interesting thing about that is when that person dropped in that situation, it was a compromise. They sort of dropped halfway between where each group thought it last crossed. So they dropped in the middle of that. And my argument was, where in the rules that they talk about compromise? So what the player is now most definitely doing is dropping in a wrong place, playing from a wrong place. Because everybody knows the ball didn't cross the edge of the red penalty area where he dropped.
Well,
no one thinks across there.
You make a very valid point, but at the same time, who knows? Where if they don't know, then there is no wrong spot, is what I'm trying to say.
But I guess the wrong spot for me was when they took the middle. Nobody thought it last crossed the red penalty there. So that was definitely the wrong spot.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's the wrong spot.
But it is the wrong spot. We know the ball definitely didn't cross there.
That's
it either crossed here or it crossed here.
No.
It didn't cross in the middle.
Yeah, but how can two people have such a different view of where it crossed?
Well, I guess no one knows for sure.
Exactly.
And my point was the player, ultimately responsible, establishing the facts, applying the rules to their ball. If the player really thought that it crossed close to the green, he should have just dropped there and put the onus back on the committee to prove him otherwise.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point.
Hovland could have, or whoever the marker was, could have said, I'm not signing, and that's their right to not sign, which then puts it back on the committee to investigate. And if they had no further evidence to disprove what the player did, and he used reasonable judgment, they'll sign the scorecard. That was the point I raised.
Well, if they didn't have great footage of it, but considering where he hit from, where it landed, there's no way it crossed where Daniel Berger said.
Well, we do know a lot of golf balls get towards the red line and, turn 90 degrees right.
No, they absolutely do not. The thing, I reckon if he reviewed where the ball came to rest, there's no way he would be able to agree that it took a 90-degree turn 15 yards from the green.
Mm.
So what you're saying is dead right. Do what you want or what you think is right. If it's shown to be not reasonable judgment, then the committee can rule on it.
And he's going to be disqualified.
If they don't have evidence disproving your reasonable judgment, then it stays.
And we know reasonable judgment in the end can be proven to be wrong, but it's still okay because you did what you did. You did what you could at the time.
Because it was reasonable.
Yeah, but we also talked. I also raised the issue about can a referee be in breach of unreasonable delay of play? Like, how long do we need to sit in the middle of the fairway talking about where it last crossed?
Yeah, well,
we've got to get to a point where we go, guys, we're going to just find a spot here and play on. This has taken 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And as you and I know, the flow-on effect that has to the groups behind, for no other reason, but they can't work out a spot.
I'm all for, if the players want to come to a compromise in the middle, I'm all for that. If it gets them continuing play. And if it doesn't, it obviously doesn't say it in the rules, but I don't care. And that's not trying to say the rules are wrong or the rules are stupid. I'm trying to say sometimes when you play, you have to have this, or it's better to have an agreement and move on right then and there than work it out at the score tent. For me it is anyway.
Well, as we know, he would have played from a wrong place, serious breach, not corrected. He would have been disqualified. That was the risk he would have taken had he said, no, I'm definitely dropping it up closer to the green.
Yeah. Yeah, and it would have been interesting to see if they actually did that. They didn't really have the footage, but if you saw where the ball landed, there's no way.
But see,
it was
Berger, Berger right there on the ground at the time doesn't know what the committee can see or cannot see, what evidence they have. He doesn't know.
Right. And they went to Gary, and Gary said, we don't have the footage for it, so you guys have to just work it out
yourselves.
But again, if they'd reviewed the footage that they did have, knowing where the ball came to rest, physics would tell you that, there's no way it was 15, 20 yards.
Now, I don't know that person you're referring to, and I've heard the name mentioned a few times. Is that the best approach? As a referee, you called in to provide some assistance, and you say, sorry, work it out yourselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you come in and say, I agree with you or I agree with you, you can't do that. So if you can't do that, what else can you do? You can only just say, hey, I wasn't here, I didn't see it. What evidence do you guys have? What evidence do you guys have? Well, I was standing here, I hit it like this, da-da-da-da. Like, well, it sounds to me like, it's you two saw it this way, it's more likely to be back here. But as you said, the rules say, benefit of doubt, you'd go with the player.
And as you know, who has the best view of it? The person standing right behind where the ball just left from, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that. That bias, aren't they? The person who...
No, I'm not talking about bias or otherwise. I'm just talking about who has the best view.
The person who would have the best view is if you stood right under where it actually crossed. I'm talking about the player versus two other players standing, 30 metres off to the left on a different angle. Yeah, I mean, who's to say that it's... Yeah, I mean, get a bit of trigonometry in there. And
yeah, we do digress. I don't know how we got onto this, but it's all good rules discussion and referee.
Well, I mean, this actually is rules discussion. It's not talking about the traffic in Delhi.
Right, or the water quality.
So next, you had the Vic Open, which looked like horrific weather conditions.
It's funny, in the referee meeting on Wednesday, someone piped up and said, oh, guys, just make sure you have a quick read of Rule 9. He didn't specifically say 9.3, but I think that's what he was certainly pointing at with regards to ball moved by natural forces. And sure enough, we had a fair few of those.
Was he a tall guy with white hair?
Yes. Whitish, greyish hair, yep.
Well, that counts for 95% of referees.
Not all at all, but...
So was it good conditions on Thursday, Friday?
Yeah, it got a bit windy on Friday.
Saturday?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely windy. Because when someone said to me on Saturday, and when the cart is shaking in the wind, and someone said, well, it's going to be windier tomorrow, I'm going, no, can't be. But it was.
So did you have balls moving on the green on Saturday?
I do not remember one call over the radio about a ball moved on Saturday.
You didn't have any issues with getting play finished or anything like that?
No. I mean, it took a while. Last group on Saturday finished at plus 29. So certainly the wind
TV time,
had an impact. Right? TV may have got extended, yep. Wind definitely had an impact on people and probably backing off over shots and stuff. But
I hate that.
I'm just trying to think of what rulings I had.
I'm so of the opinion that if you give them 4 hours 30, 4 hours 30 should be, like, if it's calm, perfect conditions, they should be all playing within 4 hours
under time
10.
Yeah.
And 4 hours 30 should be what they play in when it's windy. But that's not the case. They play 4 hours 30 when it's calm and 5 hours 30 when it's windy.
Yeah.
Even a breath of wind slows them down. Like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, in India, DOF, I can understand why 4 hours, because of all the walking and because of how long the course is, because of the greens, I can understand how they have more shots. It's harder. I still think we gave them 4 hours 51. I still think that's enough. But, it was a very long course, and you can see how they take longer to play it. But, 4 hours 50 should have been easily been able to done. But, it was terrible because it was really hard to get around the golf course. I couldn't even drive from hole 4 and hole 8 right beside each other. Couldn't even drive from hole 4 to hole 8. The tree lined, you couldn't get through it. It wasn't like it was a big pond. I mean, between 8 and 6, that was a massive lake, so I couldn't get through there.
So just getting someone from hole 6 to 7 was hard. Getting them from 7 to 4 was hard. It was so difficult. So, you're trying to put these guys on the clock, and then all of a sudden, we need a ruling on da-da-da, and rulings take precedent because otherwise you're going to block up the groups behind. So we go off and do the ruling, and it takes you 5 minutes to get the ruling, and then that group that you put on the clock, they don't speed up by themselves, so then you've got the blockage as well anyway. It's you need 18 referees, one for every group, and then obviously you got the changeover in the afternoon, so you just need 28 referees. It's unbelievable.
You're saying there's some vacancies?
What's that?
Are you saying there's some vacancies?
Well, no, because there could be, but then you got to pay for all those people, and it's the pro golf. I don't even know how it lasts, but I hope it does because it's my job. Like, I love watching the players play.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So you had Vic Open. The scores on the Sunday, I was looking at going, why didn't they play a shotgun start? Or why didn't they play a 2T start?
Yeah.
The winner for the women, one of your friends.
Yeah. Yep.
I
had a very pleasant exchange with her on Friday in a penalty area. Left.
Maybe that's why she won.
Very pleasant exchange.
The winners. She was in the clubhouse for 3 hours.
Yeah, she was in there for a while. Yeah.
So all those people that teed off late just got the worst conditions. ALJ tried to tell me that the conditions were terrible the whole day, but he did then say, well, the greens got a little bit crustier, and obviously when they get crustier and harder, the wind can have more effect on them and all that kind of thing. But the conditions looked absolutely horrible.
I'll tell you one thing she did, the winner on 18 when I was in there helping her, was her second shot's gone into the red penalty area. This is left on 18. It's the course's 4th, but we played as the 18th. And sure enough, she goes ahead and searches for it. So I begin the timer, find it in plenty of time. Then she takes a little while deciding, is she going to take the risk and play this or go back 120 metres and drop from the penalty area? So she decides to play it. And, of course, no one sees a ball come out. And so now the ball's in a worse spot. And so now she wants to find it again. So I start the timer again. I'm on my hands and knees helping her find it. I said, where'd you make the stroke from? She goes, right here. I said, well, it's got to be right here, And sure enough, there's 4 or 5 of us just peeling back grass that finally found it, clearly unplayable, worse than what it was. And then, she obviously wanted her options. And she may have walked off with a 7 or 8 on that hole, but she definitely didn't have a 5.
That's it. That was her last hole, and she walked off with a 7.
This was, on the Friday, though.
Right.
Not Sunday, yeah. So,
okay. I was going to say, wow, she's had a double on the last and still won.
No. This was Friday. One of the last groups on Friday, I reckon.
At the point that she finished at 1 over, knowing that the leader had started at 9 under, I don't know what the leader was when she finished, but the leader at the start of the day was 9 under. So she was and she was 3 under or 2 under or something. She shot 2 over or 3 over. So she's 7 shots behind. And then when she finished, got to +1. It's insane. The conditions must have been so bad.
Yeah.
I went to Adelaide Riyadh after India, and I don't really have too much to say of Riyadh and Adelaide. I love them, but I wasn't out on course. We had night golf, and I was in the rules bunker, and I got called for a couple of just explain this, please. The one that someone described as bizarre, and I guess it is bizarre, was the one ball rule with
Lee Westwood,
where he picked up a ball out of the water hazard, out of the red penalty area that he knew his ball was in there, and I saw on the coverage that the ball went in the penalty area. So there was no doubt about that. But he's picked the ball up, dropped it, played it, got on the green, and realised it's not his. And it's the same Pro V or same Titleist Pro V, but different year. And if you look at the conforming ball list, every year, every different is a different model, and they'll mark it actually slightly differently on the ball. Some have an arrow, some have two dashes, some have dots.
You wouldn't believe it, Blakey. Sorry, you wouldn't believe it. Right on cue, last week in our equipment presentation, the guy had a photo of like the last 15 Pro V1s.
Yeah.
And you could tell exactly what you're describing. And I didn't realise the subtle differences from year to year.
Yeah.
The tiniest little arrow is a bit bigger here and it's a bit smaller here, and there's another extra dash and the extra space, and could not believe it.
I will. There's a couple of funny things about this. So if you go on, I like the USGA conforming ball list. They have a photo of everyone.
RNA does too.
So, yeah, but it's just harder to find. Sorry, RNA. USGA is just so easy to find. Okay. So you go on there and they have a photo of everyone, and, yellow and white is different.
Yes, yeah. Even though it's the same year, yeah.
Yep. But the funny thing about this is, the Kirkland, the Costco, basically like a Pro V1. They only have one entry, but someone cut open like 3 Kirklands and they had different insides on every one. And I actually should have got you to go and ask about that one, because effectively it's a different type of ball, but they've only ever paid for one entry. So that's a bit...
And did you know manufacturers have to submit a ball every single year for it to remain on that list?
Yeah, well, Lee Westwood told me, I said, well, what ball do you use? And he goes, I use the 2019 one. So obviously the one that he's picked up might be 2021 or 23 or 25.
Which means Titleist every year resubmit the 2019 one again. They have to do it and pay money. Yeah,
it costs a couple of grand for every ball that they put in there. And Titleist make a ton out of balls, so don't worry about what cost it is to them.
I'm sure they're doing okay.
Yeah, they are doing okay. But yeah, they have to pay money, and I don't know if the 2013 is still in or the 2011 is still in.
Well, I've heard stories of they might have the 2017, not the 16 or the 15. Don't quote me on that, or the 18, but the 2017's there because the guy who won the Open that year still loves it and still wants to use it. Therefore, they keep submitting it so he can use it.
So I might be wrong, but I think Titleist only ever released them on the odd year. So they don't have a 2018, but I think they have 2017, 2019. But then,
I saw a lot of golf balls.
Then there was another situation where Callaway sued them for using their same cover. So they just dropped that one. And they're like, we've changed it by 5% or 10% of whatever urethane cover it is. So we've dropped that one, but you can still get the one before or the one after and blah, blah, blah.
I did hear one thing interesting about the rule, about the golf ball, and again, please don't quote me on this, but as part of the presentation, and I don't know when this is about to be implemented, but what they have is for their testing, they have the robot, right, which hits golf balls. And they have a particular swing speed, and it used to be 105 miles an hour, then they ramped up to 108, and currently it's 120, something like that. And they're about to increase it to 125, and the ball's not allowed to travel further than 317 yards. I remember that number, 317. And they're increasing it to 125. And if the ball goes beyond that, then it's not going to be conforming. And what they don't do is they don't tell the manufacturers how to achieve that reduction. They just tell them you have to do it. So if we're going to hit a ball at 125 miles an hour, it cannot go more than 317 yards.
Wow.
And they're about to change that to start bringing the ball back under control.
Yeah, right. Good. They should reduce the 7,000 metre courses. Although, when I was in Adelaide, that course is not long. The winning score was I can't remember what the winning score was now. Maybe 15 or 16 under. Maybe 14 under. Anyway, it was just hard and fast. Like, let the ball go a long way and just create the design that small greens, subtle slopes, and if you hit the green, it just shoots off to the back or whatever.
Like the 12th at the beach course at 13th Beach.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like you can lose the ball. Like, it just bounces and it just goes down the swale and goes out the back 40, 50 metres or whatever. And then you could putt from there, but it's going to cost you, it's going to at least cost you an extra shot. Being non-skillful, you're going to take a little bit more time, but at the same time, you don't take as much time as walking another 300 metres. So, I like those kind of golf courses. Hard and fast. Shorter, but hard and fast.
Would you say Royal Melbourne fits into that category? Wouldn't say Royal Melbourne as long as it used to be, in that sense of the ball, but some of those greens...
And they're massive greens.
Yeah, they're massive, but they're like concrete.
And they're like concrete. And, some of them look purple, and it doesn't have to always look green. Brown.
Isn't that six? The six on the West Course. Six on the West Course, that sixth green on the West Course is almost notorious for being how hard it is.
On the sixth on the West Course, don't go past the flag.
Right.
And don't come up short because it'll just roll back to the fairway anyway.
A long way, yeah.
So, and it's not a small green, but you've got to basically land it and keep the ball in a space, when it's playing hard and fast, in a space of the size of a king-size bed or something.
And hope you three-putt it.
Yeah, well, walking off there with a three-putt is still, a good achievement. Instead of two putts on the green and three putts off the green.
I've just heard that particular green is notorious for just being hard.
Yeah. That one.
Fast.
I mean, the next one, the little seventh, which is like 105 metres.
Yeah.
Incredible hole. You can't, if you don't want to land the ball on the right-hand side because it'll just roll into the bunker regardless.
Yep.
And then if you get it out of the bunker, it still could come back into the bunker. You basically have to aim for the left, be accurate so that it'll still roll around. And just getting on that green is number one. You don't have to worry about where the flag is. Just get on the green first.
Yeah. Be dancing.
Yeah, that's an awesome hole. That little, everyone talks about the par 3 fifth, but the par 3 seventh is awesome.
Yes, it is. Being as short as it is.
Yeah. But, so Riyadh under night golf, our referees were freezing. They had 3, 5, 7 layers on. It was cold in the desert. I was sitting in the rules bunker and had the aircon or
toasty warm.
The heater turned on for the first time. That was amazing. And then we went down to Adelaide, and Adelaide is a relatively clean course, the Grange, but because it's tight with the tree lines and stuff and the holes beside holes, and you've got 35,000 people there. It was just all the rulings were just around. Basically, all the rulings were around people, around. There's some sand there, so do I get relief from this footprint? No, you don't. Lots of TIOs, but close to the greens. As I said, the greens are sort of humps and then slope down, and then they've got this big grandstand there. So there's a lot of ruling from TIOs, and a lot of rulings from people standing on balls or picking up balls, robbing balls, all that type of thing. Do I think it's dumb that you go to a golf tournament and pick up a golf ball? Yes, I do think it's dumb. But at the same time, if you've never been to a golf tournament or you're relatively new to golf, I'd rather have you there and we can try and save the player or help the player out than not have you there. It's so much better to have atmosphere than to not have atmosphere.
So I spoke to a referee from that event earlier today who said he thoroughly enjoyed his experience there. And he said he really enjoyed seeing you for the first time in quite a while. And I don't know where he got this. He said you were a pretty nice guy, and he enjoyed spending time with you at that event.
Oh, thank you for the ride home.
Do you know who it was?
Was probably the other one then. Well, no, it was great.
Initials are Romeo Sierra.
Yeah, well, it was great to have him there. And, one of the unsung heroes of refereeing in Australia. And, just...
Hell of a nice guy.
Yeah, very nice guy. Probably should have got him involved a bit earlier. But, it was great to see him too. He's got a couple of, or a few women's events coming up.
He does.
Are you doing any of those women's events?
I'm not.
But just before we move on to that, your thing last week, what was that?
Help me out here.
Well, you went to the other side of the world.
I did go to the other side of the world.
You haven't stopped talking about it, about all the things that you learnt. You never actually said where you actually went.
No, that is not true. I haven't shut up about it. That's not true at all. Very funny, though. It makes for good podcast material, making up that stuff. I flew to Edinburgh, grabbed a rental car, and I drove to St Andrews. And I stayed in a very nice hotel, and I attended the R&A Level 3 Tournament Administrators and Referee Seminar, otherwise known as TARS, in St Andrews last week, in a very, very cold St Andrews last week for 4 days, and then drove back to Edinburgh Airport and flew home.
How many people were there?
73 people, 38 countries.
From all associations,
38 countries. So
you
name a country in Europe, there was 1 or 2 people from that country there. Europe was very well represented.
Liechtenstein.
2 from Japan, that was rhetorical. 2 from Japan, 2 from Hong Kong, Korea, Thailand, Indonesia.
How many were there from Australia?
Golf Australia sent 2 people. I wasn't one of them, but Golf Australia sent 2.
Were there any people there from the best country in the world?
I just said that.
New Zealand?
No, because they would have taken the crown for the furthest distance travelled to get there, because I had it. I got that crown and they would have beat me if there was anyone from New Zealand. Because I reckon, in fact, I'm almost certain I've travelled the furthest of the 73 people to get there. Yeah.
You would have.
Because one of the people from Australia was from Perth, so he's a little bit closer than I am.
How many European tour referees were there?
I don't reckon any.
Well, at least one.
Oh, one who's the chief referee, but he wasn't attending.
Who was presenting.
He was presenting and then did a bit of role playing, which was very, very good. I learned definitely some things off him, which was fantastic. Just the art of refereeing, just what to say to a player and when to say it, and he made some really good points to me. I'll give you an example. We're talking about reasonable stroke, or what is clearly unreasonable.
Well, I was going to say, did you ask him about the second opinion on Brooks Koepka, Daniel Berger?
He presented about that.
Good. What did he say? Or go with what you were going to say and then tell me.
All I was going to say about the clearly unreasonable is he said, don't give them an open-ended question. Don't give them a question where they can just say yes. In other words, don't say a question, do you think you can make that stroke? Because if they say yes, then they're you're locked in there. They're saying they can. What you should say is, in my opinion, I don't think that's a reasonable stroke. Rather than getting yourself locked away by them saying, yes, I definitely can make that stroke. Don't ask them that question.
So is that similar?
Just say, what are you trying to do here? I'm trying to do this. In my opinion, I don't think that's reasonable.
So is that similar to your example before with the girl about, are you allergic? And she said no. What you should have said was, in my opinion, you're not allergic, and so you don't get to leave.
You and your generation need to develop a bit of toughness and resilience.
Exactly.
And just hit the damn ball, will you?
If you don't
really good. So
if you don't die, you'll be fine.
Yeah, he gave me 2. One was a little bit complicated, but pretty straightforward. I got my way through that. But the second one, he made a really, really, really good point. He definitely did it to trick me. And, the great thing is I learned something from it, and I now know that. And that was really good. And he did talk about the Brooks Koepka thing in his presentation, which was terrific. He said he reckons that's the most nervous he's been on a golf course, was that second opinion had to come in and do that. Just the stakes, the atmosphere, just everything. He wasn't even supposed to be there. Someone else got called, and that person said, well, I'm actually back in the office. It's going to take me 20 minutes to get back there. Mark, can you jump in? And he goes, yeah, okay. So he went and gave the second opinion. And,
Did he say anything about the conduct of the players?
Yeah.
And what did he say?
Especially the one who was about to make the next stroke.
He didn't say anything about the one that hit it there in the first place?
No, he didn't mention, I don't think he mentioned that person. He mentioned the person.
You can go and watch these videos and, what they say is pretty... You realise that they're playing for their team, playing for their country, playing for whatever, but, the referee's just there to try and provide the ruling. They're not there to, they don't have money riding on it.
Get it? Rider. No, he did definitely talk about, and, I sat with him at dinner that night and we were talking about that a little bit and other things, but, the way the player spoke to that referee, I thought was highly inappropriate and completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
And as you said, I'm sure you could go and find it and go and watch the whole incident. But and you'll notice in that particular video, he's shaking his head and basically saying, in my opinion, I don't think you're going to hit it.
Did he end up hitting it? I can't remember.
He didn't provide him relief and he didn't hit it. And Mark said his club stopped, 6 inches, 15 centimetres short of the very thing that he was trying to get relief from.
And then we've seen all these comments on the video. Oh, he hit it. He definitely hit it. Oh, the referee was wrong. Blah, 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 blah.
No, he didn't. No,
I didn't think he hit it either.
He come a fair way short. Yeah, didn't even get close to hitting it.
I mean, as referees, we don't get paid enough to get abused by players.
Well, the comment was, it's everybody's there. It's their workplace. And, there's a lot of sports where referees are spoken to very poorly and treated poorly and disrespected. But there's others where they're held in quite high regard, and it's part of the tradition of that sport to actually treat. And I can think of rugby union and I don't even follow that sport, but I just know the way players speak to the official is quite respectful. And you know more about that probably than I do, coming from where you come from.
I was just thinking of all these situations where, if the referee gets abused, he can just yellow card you or whatever.
But just in general, just talking about the event, so a lot of people there, and it was a great event, and, I learned some things, and just good to meet other people. The role-playing was excellent. Good feedback, and, to me, the rulings were actually pretty straightforward. Like I had to give a guy relief from temporary water in a bunker was one. Another one was taking relief from a bridge in a penalty area, but their ball was out, in the general area to start with. Another one was, just some pretty straightforward rulings, which I thought were pretty straightforward if you've done those rulings plenty of times before.
That
was good, though.
Did you get out in the old course?
Yeah, I did, definitely as a tourist for the Wednesday afternoon. I was out there, took the photo on the bridge, and I remember seeing a photo of you on that bridge at some point in the last year or two, and there were people from the fairway yelling out four. I don't know if they were yelling out a score or something. They were yelling at me I don't know, but I was just there busy taking my photo. Anyway, that joke went better in my head when I was rehearsing it. But
yeah, that's not a great one. You call yourself a funny man. Funny looking.
But it was really
did you
cool.
Get out on the Himalayas, the putting course?
Where is that again?
Oh, that's
Is that right of the second tee?
It's right of the second tee. That's right.
Yeah, no, I stood next to it. Yes, I did.
Where the links clubhouses.
Yeah, stood next to it. Yeah, just had a look at that. Didn't roll any balls over putt, but
Was
I
it
walked.
cold? Well, it would have been cold there, wouldn't it?
Oh my God, cold doesn't describe it. But the 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. So let's go to 34, 35 Fahrenheit. But it's the wind.
Yeah.
There's ice, almost physical ice in the wind, I think.
Yeah.
Just spend half an hour to an hour just walking. Went down 18, walked across the bridge, walked across the first green to the second tee, putting area, and then walked back up one. And
Did you go to the cemetery?
Went to the museum, and then we had the dinner Friday night in the RNA Clubhouse, which was just fantastic. And told this story to a few people afterwards. We're having drinks, and Grant Moyer says, "Have you had a look around?" And we said, "No, we've been here in the dining room." He goes, "Oh, come with me and two Italian mates." And he took us up 2 flights of stairs, and we went into the CEO's office. And if you look at the front of the clubhouse, there's the one big balcony across the front. That's the CEO's office. Went in there with the boardroom and looked at some of the prints on the wall, and just, to think that course has been there since 1550 something.
Yeah.
Is incredible. To think that clubhouse, and I don't know the year, has been there for a long time, but not that long, is incredible. And as someone said, you design golf courses now, you wouldn't design them like the old course. You just wouldn't make a golf course like that. No. But that doesn't matter. It is what it is.
Did you get down to 2 and 6? Because 18's is a single green, 1's a single green, 17's a single green.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Did you get that? Oh, some of like 3 and 15's, like one of the biggest greens in the world or something.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, they're talking about pin sheets, on 87, 5 from the right.
Holy moly.
That sort of stuff.
Holy moly.
Well, because they're that big, right?
That's right.
They might have been joking, but it's probably some
imagine that
truth in there.
On 87, 54 from the right. I mean,
it was a terrific event. I'm glad I went. It was obviously an effort to get there, and terrific event. Really, as I said, learned some really good stuff and meet some really important people, and it was great. And I got home Sunday night and got straight into doing some rules stuff Monday morning. So no rest.
What do you got on in the next couple of weeks or month?
Do you know that because you know the answer, or
aren't you going to Thailand?
No, they went with someone who you and I know well is going, but they've gone with, I was going, but they're going with some more local, not more local, they're going with local association people to do that event.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm doing the Athena for the women on Sunday week.
Where's that?
At Kingswood.
Okay.
And then I'm heading overseas to attend a USGA workshop the week after.
Whereabouts? Which workshop?
The USGA Expert Rules Workshop.
Is that in California?
It is in the state of Texas.
Okay. Is that Dallas?
It is just north of Dallas, yeah.
Okay, so anyone who's going to the 90 plus Expert Dallas workshop, you'll be able to see podcast. Hopefully you can understand them.
I won't say anything. I should, speaking of recognising podcasts, in one of the breaks, I'm walking past someone. She yells out, "Stuart." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, podcast." I said, "What?" And she said, I listen to you and Blakey all the time. I love it. I listen to it. And I'm going, "Oh, okay, that's fantastic." She said, "Oh, I was going to call out podcasts from the other side of the room. I'm sure Blakey would have please," she said. And I said, "Well, I can tell him that you did that." But, so we had a great chat. She said, "Oh, I love the podcast." I said, "Well, we haven't done one for a few weeks." A shout out to Juliana from Hong Kong, who is a very, very keen listener to our podcast and loves listening to it. And I'm sorry we've been a few weeks not doing one, but a shout out and a hello to Juliana. I'll send her a note after this to say that we've recorded it and I've mentioned her name 4 times, and she can listen to the next podcast soon when you release it. But
she'll have to listen all the way to the end too.
Well, that was the point.
Now, okay, so what have I got? I've got a couple of weeks off, and then I go to live Hong Kong and live Singapore, and then I've got a fair chunk of time off. So you've got Athena, and then you're going to USGA, and then are you doing the National?
Heritage and the National. Given all that time off, you and I have to have you beat me in another match. You and I have to get together and have you beat me 3-2 or 4-3 or something. Because I haven't beat you in a match, so.
No, that's right.
Have to have another defeat. I'm okay with it. I'm grown up enough to
good
accept
form,
it.
but I haven't played in a while now, so maybe I'm out of form.
You don't lose form. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't lose class, Stuart.
You
but
do not lose. No, you do not.
You
I've
don't
never
lose
seen you
class, but
form.
you lose form. Right, GRQ. I think we've got our way through 132. Thank you to everyone who's stopped by, even for just a couple of minutes to talk about Indian traffic. Episode 132 GRQ OTW podcast. Take it away.
Speaking of matches, Blakey and Stuart are all square. Must have been a match adjustment there somewhere. Blakey and Stuart are all square in their match at Wombat Hills after 12 holes. As the light is fading and as they walk off the 12th green, Blakey says to Stuart, "Hey, podcast, how about we agree to halve the 13th, the 14th and the 15th holes, and we just walk over and play the final 3 holes starting on the 16th. Stuart agrees, and they walk to the 16th tee. Blakey tees off on the 16th hole when a roving referee drives up and investigates further. What is the referee's ruling, if anything?
I guess we won't. I was going to ask a question, but that gives it away.
Give it away
But
now.
I can see. I'm looking right at the answer, but so there's a hint. Yeah, interesting. Great question.
Thank you.
So if you know it, have a crack at it. Send me an email or YouTube comment. Otherwise, we will try and get one in next week ASAP because I've got 8 Clubland stories to go through, and I know that's what people really want to listen to rather than where Stuart and I have been. So we'll try and get them done ASAP early next week. So you'll have 2.5 hours of content to listen to
On your daily walks.
in case you're struggling to sleep. Right, thank you, podcast. That's that's episode 132 done. Have a great week. Enjoy your golf. Where's my mouse? Stop.